In what seems to be an endless parade of lawsuits, Disney told LA residents to move to Florida for a planned campus. They did, but it was canceled, and now they're suing the Walt Disney Company. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is West Coast theme park expert, Mr. VashSky. Vash, this almost got out of your area of expertise, but Disney decided to cancel plans for moving it over to the East Coast there. Do you think you can still comment on this today for us?
I believe I can, and I might have some insider information that maybe nobody else does, so there you go.
You always do. You always do. All right, let's talk about this story. This one out of the LA Times, and that's the paper of record for a lot of this company. Meg James is a senior entertainment writer there. For those of you who are not aware of what happened, Disney during the pandemic decided that they were going to move to the Lake Nona campus, which had yet to be built over there in Florida. Traditionally, Disney Imagineering is over there in Burbank, Anaheim, that kind of area. Vash, I'm sure you can add clarity there.
1401 Flower Street in Glendale, California, to be
well, I mean, if we want to get exactly specific here, yes. Somewhere along the lines, though, there was a lot of negative reaction, and then the project was canceled. We're going to add some context as we move along, but just right here, we'll say, now some Disney employees are suing the company over the canceled relocation. According to a lawsuit filed Tuesday against Disney in Los Angeles County Superior Court, that's where all the most interesting lawsuits are filed, it seems. Numerous workers heeded the company's calls, dutifully sold their homes in the Los Angeles area, and moved to Central Florida. Plaintiffs Maria de la Cruz and George Fong, both current Disney employees, alleged they were fraudulently induced to relocate to Florida by being led to believe that they would lose their jobs if they turned down the move. De la Cruz and Fong agreed to the relocation in November of 2021. The lawsuit said Disney told affected employees they would have 90 days to consider and make the decision that's best for them. De la Cruz, a vice president of product design, sold her Altadena home in May of 2022, and Mr. Fong sold his home, which was a particularly painful decision because it was the family home he had grown up in and inherited, the lawsuit said. Fong is a creative director of product design. His family home was in Los Angeles, but a year later, they had sold their houses and moved, and Disney canceled the project. A Disney spokesman did not immediately provide comment. Vash, if you had to move over something like this, how difficult is it to unbake that cake if you undo a decision like this?
Oh, it's tremendous, especially at this time. You have to consider that home prices were going all over the place. So theoretically, you could have sold your home in LA at a certain price, right? And then you go to move to Florida, in which you're dealing with housing prices that I think around this time might have been skyrocketing because people were buying them so quickly in order to get out of blue areas for various reasons starting that time. And then maybe that market changes, in which now your house that you bought at an exorbitantly high rate may have fallen in value. And so it's like, okay, well, do I necessarily move back? And well, LA prices have skyrocketed. It's inconceivable to go through a move like this and then attempt to unring that bell. At a certain point, you're going to be left high and dry, and a tremendous amount of effort and money wasted in the process.
I totally agree. Now, this is bigger than two employees, it appears, so let's get into that. The proposed class action lawsuit seeks to represent all current and former California Disney employees who relocated from California to Florida as a result of Disney's announcements of the Lake Nona project. It seeks unspecified punitive damages. Initially, Disney envisioned it would eventually save money on the $1 billion Lake Nona development due to lower worker costs in Florida. It was also drawn by tax credits offered by the state for relocating businesses, but the company got swept up in a legal and culture war with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a one-time presidential hopeful. This is the fascinating thing here. I don't think this was actually attributed to the culture war issue here. The Lake Nona project had no movement between the announcement of this culture war and the original announcement of the Lake Nona move. This is when Disney was in a very cash poor situation. It was revealed that they would have to pay somewhere between $8 to $15 billion additional dollars in order to get Hulu, and they had $100 million of free cash flow at the time, a teeny tiny amount of money on the books. Now that situation seems to have been resolved, even though Disney is probably going to have to pay pay at least maybe $5 billion more dollars in order to pay for Hulu. Also, possibly a protracted legal battle over that with their greatest rival in the space right now, Comcast. This is the kind of thing that you can say this was a Governor Ron DeSantis thing, and maybe by announcing it at the time of the Governor Ron DeSantis thing, that it's going to be his fault. But they also announced the closing of the Galactic Star Cruiser at the same moment. I think these are things that they're trying to pin on the culture war, but I don't think that's really the case. Vash, do you have any insight on that?
Oh, absolutely. And I said that at the time that the company was looking to levy any criticism or levy any loss towards DeSantis' way at this time. The article does mention here that 1 month after Disney filed a federal First Amendment lawsuit, which we covered here, well, they've now dropped, against the Sunshine State and its governor, it pulled the plug on the Lake Nona development. Legal matters have been resolved, all that, but the project's cancellation also coincided with significant cost cutting across the company. So even they kind of acknowledge that, yeah, they might want to cite a certain thing or a reason as to why they're doing it, but there are far bigger issues at play here. Honestly, they gave Imagineers, they gave them 90 days to decide, but it really, this was going to be a move that was going to be handled within like 18 months. Think about that. A institution that has been around since the 1950s in the Southern California area, and you want to uproot thousands of employees across the country and make this whole big move within a matter of like a year and a half? Come on. I mean, this was never going to go down well, but the company ran full freight into it anyway.
Right. And we're hearing that there's a 50% turnover rate from the company from when they shut down the parks to today. And I've heard that that's an even higher rate for Disney Imagineering. I think there were a lot of older Imagineers as well that decided that if they were they would rather stay where their family and all of their roots and all of their friends were rather than move to Florida for the last part of their career. The brain drain over there at WDI is pronounced. Now, also, maybe we've had some sources reach out to us from Imagineering that agreed with this. Also, there might have been some moments where they didn't want to take medical procedures that were being forced on them by the Los Angeles-based company that also cut the department in half. There's also the rise of companies that are not part of the Walt Disney Company that can do this kind of work. Some of them former Imagineers, companies like Gensler, for instance, where there seems to be a revolving door between Gensler and the Walt Disney Company, and Gensler being a contract company, also may be responsible for some of the more uninspired modern designs that are going into the theme parks. We've referred to something called the Gensler effect several times on this channel. So there are other companies that can do what Imagineering does. So maybe Disney thought that they could rely on those companies, just call them in for contract work in order to work on things. Then there's the other incidents of perhaps Imagineers being brought in to work on projects that they were attached to in the past, given golden handcuffs so that they would be shut up as opposed to actually letting them work on the project. But that's a little bit of a tangent here that we don't need to go too deep into. Vash, more than the consequences of this lawsuit, I think this move to Lake Nona and also canceling it probably was the last straw for a great organization within the Walt Disney Company. And whatever came out of it on the other side, I think is a completely different organization that might have a few people in common. Would you say that is am I crazy here?
As it relates to Imagineering specifically, I think you were exactly correct. The Walt Disney Company as a whole, I think it's a little bit of a different story, of course. But for Imagineering, I mean, it has never really been the same place since. And I have spoken to an Imagineer who left the company because of what was being experienced here. And here's the thing. I had to look at the lawsuit. I had to look at California law and see if whether or not this is even going to pass muster or survive standing and all that. But from what I understand, the Disney company was giving compensation packages in order to help facilitate some of these moves. But the algorithm that they put in place, well, I guess there was none. So, traditionally you would look at seniority, you would look at position. Apparently they didn't necessarily do that. So this has, I think, a lot of implications for the company. It like you said, it was a big reason why so many people left. I'm hearing as many as 90%. I'm still checking on that number and verifying it. But people were already leaving because of the Chapek era of the company and the cutbacks that they were experiencing at the Imagineering level already. But then to force an uproot of everybody's lives in this way, that was definitely the final straw. So many people left. And I think we've been feeling the effects of it ever since, especially as it relates to most recent projects like Jonas by Adventure or Community Core Hall.
I think you're correct. Now, we want to throw this to our commenters and ask you your opinions here. We have a lot of very insightful comments on our video, so it's always interesting to see what you have to say about this situation. Is this something that the Disney company can recover from? How big do you think this lawsuit will be for them? Or is this just something where they're going to make these two people whole and hope that it goes away? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you want to know more and you want us to try to reach out to some of our lawyer friends to see what they have to say about it, let us know in the comment section down below. Of course, like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.